to Beyond the Mist, Episode 2. Oh my god, it's been a long week, and I've missed talking about City of Mist. It's literally probably been like a day. Actually, I was kind of like sneaking around watching it at work with the 6 and 20 show Metropolis. Hi, everyone. I would never do that. If anyone from my job is watching me right now, I didn't do that at all. So welcome to Episode 2, everyone. Today we're talking about character creation. I'm super excited about this because this is my favorite part about any like campaigns I do. I love creating characters. As a DM, I love making NPCs, as Johnny would love to tell you. How many of you guys are DMs or DM'd a campaign? Johnny, shut up, Johnny.
I'm too afraid.
You're too afraid. It's not that bad, honestly.
You gotta make.
No, you like I said before, you have to step up and do that fate accelerated Dresden one that you talked about.
Okay. All right. It's all set in Philadelphia. Let's do it.
I would play that.
So you got 2 players right now. It's awesome. Do it. Anyway,
That's a good game.
So no, this is what we're gonna play the Dresden Files thing. Fuck City. This is fuck City of Mist. Let's
all right, guys,
Dresden
Files.
Out. I will tell you, I will name drop another YouTuber, Puffin Forest. If you ever see a video about his Dresden File character that he made, it is fantastic because the DM was just like, oh, I'll trust what you make. And literally, like, when I hear that, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make the fucking craziest character, because if they just sign off on it, my god, it's fantastic, because he makes the biggest asshole of a character, and you guys should go watch that video.
Well, link it to us then, buddy.
Well, hold on.
He wasn't ready.
He's so ready.
After the show.
I will. I'm getting it up right now. I'll make sure. Oh, dude, it's like right there.
Crazy.
Comes from a Dresden Files
right there in your
following a wizard
algorithms.
going around solving
No, shut up.
crimes.
There we go. Nothing. Don't pay attention to that, viewers. You did not hear anything in the background. There we go. That's for you guys. You guys watch after the show. So yeah, let's kick this right off. I'm gonna introduce my guest right now. We have the Wizened Fool, who plays JP on the Wednesday Night Cruel Team Lazarus. Welcome, JP.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about character creation. I've been thinking about it in anticipation of this.
Have you been sweating?
No.
No.
Really.
Oh, I'm so nervous. And next to him, we have the lovable Zippy Zippo, who plays Henry on the Tuesday Night Crew, Team Doozies.
We haven't discussed on the name chains. But yeah, no. Lovable Henry, Team Doozies. Yep, that's me. How you guys doing?
It's not like you killed anybody yesterday or anything.
No, I totally didn't kill anybody. Didn't rip out anyone's heart.
Kalima!
The murder count is going up on this show.
And then we have the wonderful, insane GM of our 6 and 20 Metropolis campaign, running 3 campaigns or 3 stories in one campaign, 3 nights in a row. The wonderful, insane Video Store Cowboy.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, dude. I'm excited about this subject. Because I was intended to have this to be the first episode, but it made sense to talk about world creation before we talked about characters. And I wanted to, when I was making up my character, Meta can contest to this. I literally I heard last minute from Johnny and everyone. They're like, hey, there's an open spot in the show. Do you want to take it? And I was like, my other show got canceled, so I was just like, I'll fill in that spot, and it was a great decision because I love being on this show, and it's fantastic because I literally had 2 days to make a character about a system I knew nothing about. So
You were a freaking trooper. 2 days is in this particular system. It's incredibly challenging because it's a non-trivial thing to make a character in this game.
Yeah, it was a well. Here's the benefit in my favor is that I played the playtest at TwitchCon. I got to play like one of the character, the detective. He's in the book. What Lestrange? I think his name is the guy who doesn't know he's in a dream. Who's fucking OP as fuck. Like he's the most broken character because he's like he doesn't know if he's in a dream or not. So I literally would just open doors and be like, "Yeah, I'm where I needed to be because."
So
Malcolm times 10. Like, yeah, this guy could probably, because Malcolm has imagination. This guy literally didn't know if he was awake or dreaming and could really bend reality to his will. And I did all the time. And he had a gun.
Well, so that's one of the interesting things, just to talk quickly about the pre-gens that are available with the starter set. All of them are incredibly OP if you know what you're doing and how to play them. They are very, very solid, like ability characters. Like their power tags are incredible, and they're great points of inspiration. And one of the things that I think is interesting about the way that the players have come together in 6 and 20 is that there's been some inspiration from those pre-gens, and there's been a lot of like reduction in respect to ability. Like there's some real balancing that going on that everybody who was doing character creation was doing. I mean, we did 5 or 6 character creation sessions that were awesome, just having those conversations about how to make those characters a little bit more kind of believable, and a little bit more there'd be more consequence to their abilities, their power tags. So yeah, it's been really cool.
When you have characters that are just powerhouses, that's what they just turn out to be. They're the powerhouse characters that don't fail. They can't lose. It's hard to, it just doesn't make for good storytelling if all the characters are powerhouses.
Well, based on the way that Roll20 allows us to roll,
rolling,
let's be completely honest. Everybody's been a powerhouse or they've been a complete failure.
That's why, like, every time I get a great success, I groan. I'm like, I want something juicy to happen out of this. So that's why I'll always try to fail.
I'm not a fan of the quantum roller on Roll20. I love Roll20. I love making maps on it, and I love portraying that in the story and showing an audience that, and giving a visual to the players. But the dice rolling system, we played Warhammer last night, and a majority of our rolls were over 90, and I was like, fuck this. I'm so mad. That game's
odds are also not good.
Yeah, no,
Warhammer 40K, that game has terrible odds for
Dark Heresy. I shot somebody point blank with a shotgun, and I rolled just under what I needed to hit him square in the chest. I shot him in the foot, even though I was firing at him point blank with buckshot.
I had my dice set, and I compared it to what I was rolling on here, and I had like the 2d10s. Let's do a test right now, because we're not segueing off the topic. 59. I mean, which is like, depending on what skill I used, and if I had any bonuses, it may be a pass. But I have an Arbiter or Arbite that is dumb as crap. So when he needs to go search for underworld stuff, he's just like, I don't know. And he just walks around aimlessly. But I love him because he's Judge Dredd. That was my inspiration. And speaking about that, character concepts. Sam, Wise and Fool.
Yes.
So when you made the concept for JP, what was your inspiration behind that?
That's a good question. So I too got recruited at the very last minute by Mike. And I've played Fate and a ton of Powered by the Apocalypse games. So when I first started reading the book, I was like pretty familiar and caught on. I was like, all right, I have some ideas. And so the thing that I came to the table with that I knew I for sure wanted was I knew I wanted to play kind of like a fish out of water character. Because I've been playing a lot of characters that are kind of comfortable in their environment and kind of know what's going on lately. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do something a little different. And then I started like talking to a bunch of different people about what mythoses they were going with. And I realized that not very many people were going with anything in like more of like a East Asian canon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just a huge mythology nerd. So that's kind of, I just picked one of my favorite characters, and that was kind of how it started. And then from there, I was like, there's really good advice in the book where it's like, all right, if you've come up with a mythos, when you're trying to think of your logos, try to like think of what would have attracted that mythos to this person. And that's where JP came from.
That's a pretty, because the one thing when I made Johnny, Johnny's an American folklore, and some people can know who it is, and some people are like, they still haven't figured it out, and it's been hinted at like quite a few times. Like if you watch all the episodes and you go through and piece them together, you're like, oh, I know his mythos. Like, or if you could like search Google and be like, okay, I know what his mythos is now. That's one thing I was noticing with everyone else, is that like I knew people were going to be more because with Metamancer on Team Esper with me, we lived together, so I knew about her character and like
No, you don't.
The consensus is no one's ever seen us in the same room at once, because whenever I hand her anything, you only see my hand show up, and then
You're the stunt guy.
Yes. And the one thing is she kind of gave me she told me what her character was and like what the inspiration behind that was, and hers was the Morrigan, which is very well known on the show currently, and so hashtag spoilers, and I think it was pretty much, it was found out fairly early into the show.
I mean, that's her name.
It is. So one thing is that I figured that a lot of people were gonna, like, when I think mythos, a lot of people were gonna go like Greek gods or someone like significant that I knew, and I was like, I want to be someone obscure, and the one I found is like pretty obscure, and I kind of relate to that. Like I still don't know what JP's mythos is. Like I sit there, I know it's Oriental in origin. I don't know where specifically yet. I don't know if it's Japan, Korean, or Chinese, or even more obscure. I don't know. Like
A bunch of people have guessed mine.
have they?
A bunch of people have guessed mine.
Okay, so your martial arts training for JP, what is it exactly? Like if you had to say, what kind of style of martial arts does he use?
So we didn't talk about it too much, but his original training is probably like closest to Kyokushin karate.
Mm-hmm.
But then he, like, in his professional career, he spent a lot of time I kind of conceived of him as being kind of a like sort of a sport fighting athlete. So, you know, he's Brazilian and Japanese in heritage. So he spent some time doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, probably spent some time doing Muay Thai, because that's one of the bigger fighting sports outside.
A lot of fighting styles that use jumping and misdirection and whatnot.
Yeah.
Very, very in tune with your mythos.
I think what's gonna break open who my mythos is for everyone who hasn't guessed it is if I ever replace one of my logos theme books, because I know what I'm going to pick, and I specifically didn't pick this theme book when I created the character because I knew that it would make it too obvious, and I knew that part of the show was going to be to like have people guess who our mythos were. So
same people were like, oh, he's Vinefellow and whatnot, and a lot of people are like, I don't know what his mythos is. He heals people and he creates vines, and it's like, well, whenever you get that third mythos book, it's like then he'll have, I already have an idea of, he controls spectral hounds, and that's more to the mythos,
Well, you also revealed it on the
Oh yeah, I did. It's Kernunos. The spectral hounds is what are his guard dogs and his hunting dogs that he does during the wild hunt.
That was one thing. Like, so where'd you get the inspiration to Kernunos?
you're gonna be like, you're not a real mythology lover. It's because I like mythology, but Smite, the
okay.
the third person MOBA. I was playing it, and then like I was doing a lot of stuff, and Johnny approached me with City of Mist, and I kind of looked into it, and I was like, gods.
Wait,
And then I
wait.
was-
Were you also last minute?
No.
Oh, okay. You're not
No.
cool like me and Sam then.
No, well, because like I was like, all right, Carnunos, and I was like, okay. So I started doing all the research. I got the inspiration from the god list from Smite. I will say that, but I did all the research and I looked into it. And what really interested me was in Welsh, Carnunos is Hern the Hunter, and what I wanted to play with a lot was the duality of interpretation of gods, like. Greek has Zeus, and then the Romans have Jupiter. They're both the same entity, but they're two different aspects, two different ideals. Cernunnos is the warden of life, death, prosperity, harvest, abundance, nature, and stuff. While Hern, he is a spirit of vengeance. He wants to get vengeance for himself, for the people who killed him, and he often often haunts the woods of Windsor Forest, shaking chains and just being a general ass kind of deal. But I was like, I want to play around with that a lot in the character. So that's where Henry's Dark Passenger comes from. It's Hern saying, you can get vengeance, you just got to kill him. And then Henry, wanting to respect life like Cernunnos respects life, is saying no, this is not me. But yesterday he ripped out somebody's heart because they were going to kill Roz. He gave into it, saying, okay, I understand, if I do not kill him, he's going to kill Roz.
Yeah. There's also something interesting when you heard the female lady voice that said show him no mercy. I was very much like, was that Morgan, or the Morgan? That's literally where my brain went, because one of her things is show man no mercy. And that should, man meaning human, not just a gender. So show man no mercy. And when I heard that and that was played out, I was like, because Cernunnos and the Morgan,
they are polar opposite. They are on opposite sides of the spectrum, and they have been known to fight to bitter ends, And I want to see that crossover. I do too. Well, it was more to the fact that Cernunnos also has a idea of respecting life. So every winter, Henry goes on a killing spree. Think of Henry in the winter like Dexter. I like to compare to shows a lot. Henry's like Dexter in the winter. He goes after people who are murderers, thieves, rapists, and he shows them no mercy because he says that they disrespect and they're an affront to nature itself. He's going to reduce their body back to the earth so something beautiful can grow in its stead.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Morgan, but no. She just, because she's judge, jury, and executioner, so it's like, oh, okay, well, that's she turns into a crow, dive bombs, and rips out their throats. So watch episode 2, everyone.
Sorry.
No, I don't want anything.
One of the things that I really was interested when I heard that Metamancer was going to do the Morrigan and I was going to do Cernunnos. To me, I enjoy Celtic god mythology because they're all about duality, balance, the ever-turning thing of life. They have a goddess called Artio, who is a warden of nature. She's basically Smokey the bear. She's also the bear goddess. She transforms into a bear.
I just had an idea for another mythos.
Smokey the bear.
Yes.
Smokey the bear. I want to do I actually was in the shower and I was like, I wonder if anybody will want to do a one shot of City of Mist. And I was like, if they do, I wonder what character I would make. This is my hand gesture for me you know,
It's like,
Massaging
are you shampooing your hair the whole time?
Like,
You're like, oh, yeah.
yeah. And I was like, a leprechaun, but his logos is he's a cobbler.
Meta and I had a good discussion of one, is that like, everyone's mythos is cartoon related. And as you be a sleeper, but, as you, wake up, and become become a toon or become in tune with your toon self, you can go to Toontown.
Oh God!
And then you also see things differently than everyone else.
This is like not Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Who is the Rob Bakshi film? It had Cool World.
Oh yeah,
God. Yes.
We more got it from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but Cool World is also another good reference from that. Because I discussed with her because she's gonna do a one shot here soon, and I was like, oh man, I would love to make like who Roger Rabbit as a fucking mythos. Because like he would be immortal because you would like hit him with shit unless you had
Unless you had dip.
Dip, yeah, that's what it was. Unless you had dip, and then ooh.
I was thinking a hilarious mythos would be Sterling Archer.
Oh.
So I don't know if it was gone into last week because I actually haven't caught up on. I was supposed to catch up on the last week's episode, but I still haven't yet with world building. But one of the rules that we established was that no memes and no like modern internet references kind of a thing. And I think that there are some ripe memes and concepts to kind of play up in that. And it was one of the reasons that we were talking about it as a pro and a con when we were doing world building was the whole concept of like American gods, where there's the old mythology and then there is the new mythology that's being built around modern pop culture concepts, right?
Yeah.
And I think a one shot of just modern concepts like that, memes, internet legends. I mean, Slenderman is one of my favorite examples of a modern internet creepypasta kind of a thing that just is fantastic and has taken on a life of its own in respects to the storytelling that can happen with it.
And I'm going to give you the other end of the spectrum where you would not want a character coming in with this, the Ugandan Knuckles.
Oh God. I didn't know
if
what
you
that
let
was
somebody
for the
go
longest
meme,
time.
If you let somebody do pop culture, I swear to you, there will be one person who's like, I want to be Ugandan Knuckles, and my power tag is I'm going to show them the way. That. So I'm kind of glad we don't do memes.
Yeah, it could get out of hand quickly.
One of the interesting things about that, though, is that when you guys all came to the concept, when it was presented to each of you, you all came with things that you were really interested in that had nothing to do, honestly, with modern pop culture in any way, shape, or form. I think the closest that anybody has really gone to is Charlie on the Tuesday show, which is sort of this mashup of, Daredevil and a character from The Last Airbender. Otherwise, most of the stuff is very ancient and very deeply steeped in cultural mythology for very particular cultures. So
I would also argue Geo.
Yeah, Geo.
Yeah.
Geo. So when I think modern, I think I'd like to say 1900s forward, because that's 100 years of things that could actually become myth and legends. That gives enough time to have everything incubate. So when I would say also Geo is pretty modern-esque, as opposed to JP, whose mythos is very old.
Very, very old.
Mine, Morrigan's, Roz, the Holy Grail,
well, if by that standard, then Peter Pan, who is Mike's,
yeah,
basically is very modern in that respect.
Sort of, because Peter Pan was written. When was Peter Pan written?
That's
I think
1898, or is that? Oh, 1898. That's more recent.
1898.
Yeah.
2 years under the standard, but yeah, no. I'll
first appearance, the Little White Bird in 1902.
Okay, well then, shit.
Okay. Well, so I mean, anything coming out of 19th century Victorian England and after, sort of that there's that line of sort of some of the modern storytelling that's come out of it, like everything that Alan Moore kind of picked out of Victorian science fiction and fantasy writing of that time, or even sort of pulp writing, Alan Quatermain, that kind of a thing. All of that would seems to apply by that same standard, even though it's not like necessarily 1900. I mean,
Yeah, like 40,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Jules Verne, that's right.
Dr. Doolittle.
Dr. Doolittle, yeah.
Oh, that'd be an awesome mythos. So
he probably not talk to animals, but he could probably convey ideas, kind of like an elf or a gnome could.
That was actually one of the things I was thinking about with character creation, is like you can take a character from myth or legend that has kind of a very specific and obvious set of powers to apply to the theme books, and then you can also go a different route, which I think we've seen some people do, where it's like kind of this vague, more like shadowed figure that doesn't really have powers per se, and you kind of interpret the different parts of their stories and how the powers would apply. I think Greg kind of did that with Gepard. And I think that's like a really interesting way that you can go about character creation, where you sort of take a sort of more side character of the myth or the story and kind of expand on what their power set might be.
Yes, that's one of the things that I tried to do. I was warned by one of my good friends, who is very deep into pagan culture, that I should be very careful when using Cernunnos, because Cernunnos is similar to their big bad, not big bad, but their big good. One of their patrons. He's all about like prosperity and like a bountiful harvest and whatnot. So one of the things was like, well, that would be interesting to play, but I kind of want to play a darker version of him. Why is Cernunnos in the Celtic mythology, and why is he changed to Herne in Welsh, and why is he kind of like wrapped up in this idea of vengeance, so, and it's also said in some of the stuff that I've looked at is that a lot of the Greeks thought Cernunnos and Pan were the same person, because Cernunnos is like a satyr, but he's stag instead of goat.
So that would be an interesting set of circumstances to see you, Morgan, and
Cal
in the same room at the same time, given the more naturalistic sort of I'm curious to see how that would actually play out, especially given Cal's current disposition again, and how he feels against Morgan, who he is not happy with at all right now. So
I was about to say it'll be hard enough to get Morgan and Cal in the same room.
Yeah, and then now Johnny has put my character in the impossible task of getting atonement with Mr. Gallows, because I have to mend the wounds in the party, and I'm like, oh great.
I said it in our Discord chat. I think this is the perfect moment for the JP has to try to wrangle up Cal, because he needs help babysitting Johnny and Malcolm on this dragon hunt.
Do you want to hunt a dragon? So Johnny, this brings up a good point. With you, now you don't have any one character, you have several characters that you make up. Do you make any of them up on the fly?
A good 25% of them are definitely made up on the fly.
Okay. So
good.
No, I was just, so like you have a lot of NPCs you have to make, and when you make them, especially on the fly, do you know what power tags they have? Like when you...
So I have a little a notebook that I've started keeping for various games. I started this when I was doing Blades in the Dark, and basically what I would do is I'd follow oh god, let me see if I can find the note on it real quick. But basically what I do is I follow a style that Adam Koval kind of talked about at one point on Twitter, which is he outlines three things, right? What's the current situation of this person, what can they do, and what are their goals are, I think is what the three things are. And I just build a name and those three things, and stuff kind of grows out of it. For Blades in the Dark, there was a very specific set of things that they could do based on the mythology of the world, based on the power set of the world. Mm-hmm. In City of Mist, there's a little bit more to it than that. And that's because of the concept that the game allows you to explore mythology, pop culture, fiction. These are the things that we kind of outlined as the original world. And so even before we did the world building sessions that we did, I had a general concept that I wanted to explore the idea of gods walking among us, right? So the mythology of the Greeks, the mythology of the Norse gods, the mythology of the Chinese gods and the Egyptian gods. All of these different things. So there's a fair bit of thought that has gone into, and there's a fair bit of understanding of what those mythologies bring to the table, and they eventually kind of find themselves in the notes of these are the power. It's not necessarily power tags. They're one sentence descriptions about what can happen. So I'll give you a great example. It was revealed this week that Harold Bjorn is basically Thor. I've got 5 or 6 lines of text that basically kind of outline what his hammer is, that it's a relic, what it can do, what his abilities can do even without the hammer, and that just kind of those blanks kind of fill in. And you and I had a discussion privately that there was an incorrect way that I handled this, but when I wrote it as a danger profile, which is the framework of the way that you specify most NPCs. And so they, for the most part, they come fully formed when you finally see them at the table. They may not have every detail outlined, and I may come up with the detail at that point, but I've got index cards that basically have all of their information kind of outlined. For those that come up on the fly, it's completely sort of a pull out of your ass kind of a situation where I'm just like, okay, thank you, Greg, or thank you, Sam, or thank you, McLoken. I need to go and create a character right now, and I have to do all of this information. Okay, well, it's going to do this, this, and this, and you'll see me furiously jotting notes as this is going on. And so, I've got groups of ideas in my head that I kind of pull together when I have something. And yeah, that's the process I go through for the most part.
Yeah, on Chosen, there was my group is very chaotic. By chaotic, I mean they just walk up to random NPCs and start having conversations, and I'm like, I have to look at my name list. I'm like, yeah, that's Viscero, or something, like just make up names like right then and there, and then like make up a backstory about them and be like, or like what kind of character they are. And I imagine City of Mist is very much similar, because not everything you're gonna meet is a mythos, right? And so I hats off to you, man, because just with the keeping up with us, like 3 different parties, and being like, and I think all our groups have been like, hey, what's that dude? Like, let's go talk to him. And then we're just like, I think Morgan, the first episode, she made that guy her patient. And I'm sure you weren't expecting that one. Or,
no.
Yeah.
Well, so what's interesting about that, I'll talk a little bit about that particular process as it was coming about. When she engaged that, I think it was his name was Kevin, and he was a member of the Skulls. I've got the 3x5 card that I wrote all the information on, and I rewrote it a couple of times over the course of those 2 episodes, because she met him in the first episode, and then she engaged him in the second episode in a therapy session, which was probably one of my favorite moments that I've had with Morgan as a character, in the game so far, because we got to see a lot of her humanity, a lot of her logos in that scene. But it started out as, okay, I've got to introduce a nuanced character here who is mostly in trouble, but there's got to be some redeeming quality so that she gets a connection with this particular person and doesn't immediately kill him because it's the Morgan. right? And so I started out and I wrote a couple things down and we refined them. And by the time we got to that second session, I knew things about the fact that he was, of his family, right? And I knew things about the fact that he was reluctant to be, the reasons why he was reluctant to be in the skulls and all of that. But most of that came about as she was engaging him and asking him questions. It was like, okay, idea, jot down a note. And then after that scene was over, I rewrote the card. And then by the second episode, I had rewritten the card a third time to be completely more of a fleshed out version of that NPC, because I knew it was going to be important, at least for one episode. So it's a process. It's a huge process, and I know exactly what you're talking about in respect to having to come up with NPCs on the fly. I think Blades in the Dark was a great example of a game where there is very little structure to the actual story, and the players are determining the direction of the story every time. And so I had to evolve very quickly in respect to my GMing style, of being able to be completely in the moment to do the improv. The most difficult thing for me that I find is when players want a particular character and they are a particular NPC and they want to go back to them. The biggest difficulty I have is remembering how I did the characterization correctly and how I do the voice. Because I've got concepts about what I do with very particular NPCs that have been in my head for a while, but those on the spot ones are a little bit harder to kind of bring back around.
Yeah, I know the voice part is very hard, because I did a whole Moogle village at one point. They all talk like this, and I was like, oh, they talk like this, and then they were very like high pitched, like different tones, and I was like, well, I gotta differentiate them just in case they have a conversation with multiple of them, and two of them talk to each other, they have to know which one's talking, and I was like, fuck, man.
It's the way they say "kupu."
So that's how they said Kupo in my campaign. All right.
So the worst.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I
Sam.
was gonna say the worst thing for that is like when you have to do one of your NPCs in some sort of like have to play like one of your NPCs drunk or something like that, where it's like, shit, like what was this guy's voice? Okay, now how would that sound if it was like drunk?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the one thing I will say about when I bring NPCs into play, once they're in play, I tend to leave them in the world so that they are eventually going to come back, or they are eventually discoverable. And that's a part of a philosophy from a GMing perspective. It's like, I can build a story, but you as players are going to build the world around you and that story. And so it gives me opportunities to introduce them as consequences or as distractions more often, and it relieves some of the burden for me as a GM for some of that world building. But I will also say that, and I've said this to you guys, I think some of you privately, anything I introduce in the game is there for a reason. It's Chekhov's gun, right? There's always a reason for it. It may not be a big reason. It may be a little thing to help you explore some elements of your character, but there is a reason for it. And so I always love when you guys kind of gravitate towards that. And I'm forced to build a larger story around it because you guys are like, oh, well, this is there, so I'm going to go to explore this. So.
Like how the main quest is the Dare sisters, and Team Doozy was just like, yeah, let's go fuck with Sable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry.
No, I mean, like that's an interesting. Like, I like how all our groups like really have done different things. Especially after this week, I have no idea what's gonna happen. Because a lot of shit has hit the fan. And I don't want to reveal anything all too much. I just recommend everyone please go watch it. I believe it's gonna be on the 6 and 20 YouTube, right? Or we're gonna have the playlist link down below. Okay.
Yeah, the playlist that is getting updated weekly now, and I just finished uploading a bunch of stuff for the Tuesday crew because I was behind, and so yeah, tomorrow or yesterday's show that was done Friday will be up there Sunday night, so that should all be fun. And this video hits the YouTube channel on Monday.
Yeah, there's been a lot of identifying which are the biggest metaphorical hornets' nests in the city, and then running up and jabbing them with sticks.
He's really good at it.
The one thing that I kind of noticed is we were all introduced to the main quest uniquely, I would like to say. because we probably wouldn't have gone after Sable if I didn't find like that these three people have been punched. I didn't find the giant dent in the side of the truck, and we never met Lily. Because if we'd never met Lily, we would never have found out that she's trying to be kidnapped by Julius Sables, and that wouldn't have gotten Henry all gunned up to stop somebody from kidnapping children, basically. So, you know, that I feel like that's what gunned me up over to Sable, you know, over the Dare sisters, is because it's like, no, this is how we naturally got to this point, you know, is that's the way the flow went. I heard the Dare sisters, but it's like, no, my focus is on this. This is my primary focus. So I thought the main quest was Julius Sables and the side quest was the Dare sisters, but it was completely flip-flopped around.
Yeah. And then Wednesday crew, you guys have been like, oh, the Dare sisters, what's my problem though? It's like more like inward, and like the character, I think the character development's been more like, what is me? Like, what is my mythos? I like JP's very hit most of his montages have been more directed toward his mythos with his clones. So this comes into play right now. My follow-up question for you, Sam, is what your theme books like? Why'd you decide the theme books that you chose?
That is a good question. And I'll try to talk about it in vague terms so that I don't outright spoil who the mythos is. But basically, what I think the most interesting thing in the turning point of the character's story in his mythology is when the character finds a group of people that he cares about and wants to protect. And so that was, I think, the thing that I mostly wanted to focus on as like the connection between the mythos and JP in their personalities. And so that was why I definitely knew that I wanted to do as far as, and like the mythos also has just a whole host of powers. So I was like, all right, I know I can like grab a couple of these and turn them into different playbooks. I just need to figure out which ones I want to focus on. And so that's how I picked the Bastion playbook, which is Stone Body. I was like, all right, I'm going to focus on the things that are like more about protecting people. And then I was really torn between choosing Relic as my second playbook, which is what I would choose if I ever end up getting rid of the Logos tag. But then when I was going with the Relic, I decided that the character, especially with the Logos books I played, was going to be a little bit too combat focused. And I decided that there was just too much fun that could be had with the transformation and replication tags. It was like that set of powers has just too many possibilities for nonsense and craziness that I was like, all right, I have to pick it. And I was immediately rewarded with Trendane pointing out, as soon as I like do anything with those power tags, hey, what if your clones are naked? So it paid off tremendously
with the naked clone battle, which I thought was really interesting because that came back to play later on, where you actually met one of your clones, but I think one of the things that you do when you pick a mythos or a lore book or a theme book is you come up with a question for like with the mythos. And I think what yours is.
So I've two. So my two mythos questions are for the Stone Body theme book. It's who am I meant to protect? Mm-hmm. And then for the other one, it's how can I be sure that I'm not the clone?
Yeah. And which is very like, I think that's a very like insane question that like you really have to ask yourself, because like I think schizophrenia. If you're like, maybe I'm part of someone else's dream or imagination, that's like the main, like, that's insane. I think it's schizophrenia. Don't quote me on that. If the YouTube comments, I'll go.
Dissociative identity disorder would also.
Mm-hmm.
Whose identity is the true identity
Yeah.
when you have multiple personalities.
Yeah.
So,
and I think there's a few characters. Well, there's two characters with multiple personalities, as far as I can tell. So with Alex, your theme books. What are your mysteries like? What do they pertain to?
So, the way that I set up his abilities and theme books is, the one thing I absolutely like the idea of is Cernunnos is a nature god, and because of that, I wanted to have his abilities reflect on the changing of the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the recurring weakness tags in all of his theme books is seasonal atrophy, and Johnny and I were talking about this. Is if I use an ability out of season, it's generally weaker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so right now we are in summer, which is his relic theme book, which is the torque. Now a torque is just like this necklace, you know, it doesn't fully connect kind of deal, normally made out of bronze. I thought that would be nice, but I wouldn't see a reason why Henry would ever wear it, so I turned the torque into a magnetic bracelet for therapy, like magnetic therapy and stuff.
Yeah.
That is because there have been some stuff about the torque being used for ancient medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So this relic, Cernunnos wore a torque, is his healing relic. And his mystery is, can I truly heal the sick, or am I just prolonging death?
Yeah.
You know? His tags are, he is magical healing. So it's not like a physical healing, it's not medicine healing, it's specifically magical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, more for the fact that if something has a resistance to magic, the healing won't work.
Mm-hmm.
I love what is it called, knife theory for characters, is purposely giving them like weaknesses, so the DM could play that more, you know. Yeah. One of the things that the torque can do is regen in the summer, but in the winter it flips over into degen. So instead of healing, it hardens, you know, it sucks the life from.
Yeah.
Was that it can go inert. You can spend all of its magic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people were like, that seems like a really drastic weakness. I said, no, that's more realistic, because if it never went inert, Henry would be relying on it a lot. Henry only used the torque like 3 different times specifically over the entirety of the Tuesday, you know, show line, because, you know, I don't want that one time to be like, hey Henry, you've been using it too much, it's going to go inert after you use it. It's like, damn.
Yeah.
You know? The other thing was the expression. What I like to do is I like to look at the character and say, okay, these are the things that he's known to do. Like JP was saying, you know, he wanted his relic. I know exactly what relic you're going to go for, my dude, because I know your mythos.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. So when you think about when you're thinking about a mythos, think about what they're known for. The one thing that I want to, like, the one example I use when I tell people how to create their mythos is, think of Hercules, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hercules is strong, but he also has a lot of relics. He would be the best relic mythos. He would have the
lion's mane,
the mane of the Nemean lion.
Mm-hmm.
He would have the gauntlets. He would have the sword, you know, but he'd also have his super strength. So the Nemean lion would be a relic. His super strength would be an expression.
Mhm.
I would say. Um, with Henry, his expression is the vines, anything that he creates.
And
So,
and one thing about Hercules, so to throw in this right there is you could also throw in a bastion with
Mhm.
him as well, because you could say God's blood,
God's blood.
being invulnerable, or half a demigod, but that's the wonderful thing about this system, is that you're able to like take like two people will make the same mythos differently.
Mhm.
And I think that's a great concept. I No, go ahead, Sam.
I was gonna say I also really like how flexible it can be. So like,
Hmm.
for example, I think so. Johnny and JP both have super strength, but if I recall, like Johnny's is an expression, and JP right, and JP's is part of his bastion tag.
Hmm.
So like, you can do it in multiple. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but like you
It
can.
all what that tells me, like as a viewer, if you guys were leaking that information, is where does the super strength come from?
So here's okay. So with Johnny, it's actually coming from his bastion.
Oh yeah. Okay.
His more defensive abilities come from the expression.
Right.
So, and then his third tag, which I think, or his third theme book, which will probably give away who he is gonna be, I think, gonna be maybe adaptation if I get to that point.
Mhm.
And I have an idea for that. So, one thing with Johnny is when I made him, I was looking at it. I had the misconception of being like, oh, I have super strength, invulnerability, and then expression, I have invincibility, and like kind of like stacking power tags, which isn't the greatest, because you can only, I think, can you only use one or the other, if I remember, or I can't use them in different situations.
They were based on. So one of the ways that we've done our interpretation of the power tags and how they apply to the role has been about what the ultimate intent was, or how the mythos, or how the tag sort of plays into the situation. They're very contextual in that way.
Yeah, like it, I was trying to land on a car. I was using my vines to slingshot me over to that car, so I was using Briar Weapon, which is part of my expression tags, and I was using Ebb and Flow and Evasive Footwork, which is part of my training logos theme book. And Johnny is really good at saying, okay, so how are all those tags applying? As long as you make a good enough argument, almost any tag, you could use all of your tags if you made a decent argument for each one on how they apply to this specific action.
And I think with that, like what I like to do, I've never brought Johnny above 3 tags personally. That's just me though. That's why I want to play it, because I want the chance for him to fail. And I like it when characters fail. Not to be like, oh, but I think it creates a better narrative, showing that like, hey, if I lay out, like I could, seriously, when I start fighting someone, or if I hit someone, I can lay out about 8 tags, which is ridiculous, because as soon as you have like 5 tags that you lay out, you automatically would succeed, even if you roll 2 1s. Unless your GM is like, if you roll 2 1s, that's an automatic fail. So that I like having that the thrill, like, is he gonna make it? If other things get added to it because it's in his favor, like, so that's how he'll get to like a +4 or 5, is if he's with Cal, he's got entourage. If he's with or if there's a story tag giving him a bonus on that, and that's how he's getting through it.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. I love invoking weaknesses. That's why whenever Henry loses control, and I specifically says these vines, everything he has thorns on it, because that's a very winter thing to do. As soon as that he's in that mindset, or he's in that mode, I always use seasonal atrophy. he's not supposed to be able to do this, out of season.
Mhm.
And that's the nice thing about the way that kind of tag economy works in the game is you're encouraged to invoke weaknesses if you want to progress your
Yeah.
theme.
Like when, oh yeah,
Yeah,
go for
and so like hey, you can dump as many tags as you want in there, but the tags inform the fiction in interesting ways. It's like if you hit someone with super strength and they're just a normal person, well, that's gonna like really change the scenario when you roll that 10. And then also, you can just continually invoke weaknesses to kind of balance out the actual numbers. So
I
think
I
there's
will burn tags just so I can limit myself on how many tags I can use, but I'll always burn them narratively, in a narrative sense that it fits. Like yesterday, be top of the session, I burned obstacles, which is part of my expression theme book, almost immediately to create a giant wall that the van would run into. I lost obstacles for the rest of the session, but I was okay with that. And then I lost an entire theme book when I stopped holding back, which I was totally okay with. And then Johnny gave me the story tag Ultimate Guilt, which I was like, I can use that by invoking a weakness. But since it's not a weakness tag, I wouldn't put attention on it. I would use it specifically to get that negative to see if I failed.
So there's something interesting about talking about the economy, the tag economy, and the way that it plays in the game. And there's a modifier here also that I will say there's a difference between rolling dice and rolling through Roll20, which is a modifier to this conversation. One of the things that I see happening, and I try to correct their behavior because I want the players to think about this. Not only because they've spent so much time thinking about the power tags, but also because the power tags are actually there to support the narrative. You should be thinking about this in most situations. What am I doing? Explaining what I actually do. Okay, so if I'm going to punch somebody, Johnny's going to come up and he's going to punch somebody, what power tags really apply to that? Not, let me throw some power tags at this because I'm excited I've got all these power tags, and then I'm going to do it. The narrative informs the mechanics, which then inform the narrative of the result. Not just the positive but the negative as well. The challenge is with that economy is things like the Roll20 RNG generator, right? The quantum generator is because it feels, the way that it's implemented, it's spread across so many different sessions in the game. Sometimes you get these runs of just like super positive or super negative, and then it becomes even more difficult to kind of quantify what, or to kind of, to manage what is the right amount of tags to play and how you're going to play it. So there are so many nuances to this, what you're calling the tag economy, that it makes it difficult, sometimes for a player to even decide, well, what is the right thing to do here? Should I throw more tags at it because I fear I'm going to fail, or should I, should I limit myself? Which is an interesting, choice on McLoken's part to just, just kind of introduce that element of real risk of failure here. And I think a lot of the players, rightly so at the table, are afraid of failure because of the circumstance. But at the same time, I completely love it when somebody just says, I actually want to fail this. I don't want this to happen because I want to see, I want to build the larger story. I want to build the more complex story that comes with consequences.
Mm-hmm.
I love looking at it from a narrative perspective. I love this game because of how narratively driven. There'll be some times where it's like, I'm going to try to break into this what is it? What did I break into? What was it called?
The police station?
No, not the police.
Evidence locker?
Yeah. Before that, I went to get the blueprint.
City
Records
Hall?
office.
Yeah.
The Hall Records. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hall of Records. There was just one time where it's like, I could throw more tags at this if I argued about it, if I made an argument, but realistically, I'm only using obstacles right now to create the vine to unlock the door.
Yeah.
and I'm just going to throw one tag because it just makes sense to just throw one tag. There's been times where I'll either throw 3 or 4 tags, but that's because it makes sense to throw 3 or 4 tags, or I'll just throw one. You know, if I'm throwing 3 tags, I try to invoke a weakness because I would like that chance to fail. When he broke into the evidence locker and Johnny was like, "You can either walk out right now and join the group, but he's going to see you, or you can try to knock him out, but the other people will see you," or something like that. It was something like that. I was like, damn, what would he do in this moment? Nah, he'd walk out. He'd try to hope nobody noticed. I love that. I love failures, especially because it creates a bigger story. Because without that, we wouldn't have the lockdown. We wouldn't have the break to get out. The urgency. He would just be sauntering up stairwells like, haha, I'm home free. Now he's had to beat up cops. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like that's the one thing I agree with is like having those failures, right? Like if you look through history, even like the biggest, like your mythoses in general, what were their failures? Like what do you see? And I also think from like a showrunner perspective, if everyone succeeds all the time, they become like I call it the John Cena complex, right? Mm-hmm. There's a reason John Cena gets booed all the time at WWE, well, at least back in the day, because he would win all the time, and you would know that John Cena's wrestling, he's gonna win, name drop. So that's why Johnny, the way he is, he's a great fighter, he's really strong. But at the end of the day, he's kind of socially inept, and he is very much, and this doesn't have to do with the mythos, this is his human side. He's very socially inept. And like his mythos actually was very sociable. And that, I like the kind of duality I threw into that character. That's what I like to see. I like to see like how do they overcome their failures. That's the main thing, and I love to see growth in characters because in D&D when everyone starts off at level 1, they're fucking nobodies, man. They're like, you're like, okay, this is Joe Schmo. Like you're an adventurer, yeah, okay. Please come back alive because you have 5 hit points, or 9 hit points because you rolled terribly and you're a fighter. And having them go on that adventure, I think is really and seeing them grow together. Because like our team is fucking in arguments consistently right now, and I love that. I love that there's like this dynamic going on, and how can we overcome this failure? Yeah, I mean, so with JP, what do you think JP's biggest flaw is?
Oh man. Hoof. So
on the spot.
So JP probably didn't get as much love as a talented young boy should get when they're a child.
He wasn't strapping enough.
And so he has some pretty bad family issues, and that ties in heavily with his kind of pathological need to put everybody else's needs and safety ahead of his own. So like, you can see it in he's like always constantly, basically anytime Johnny goes, well, okay, you can do that, but you can either abandon that or you can take a risk, or you can either abandon that or get hurt. You'll see that JP always chooses whatever option is going to hurt him and save the other person. And I think that is really the main thing is he always really wants to be the good guy. He's like so obsessed with helping and saving everyone else, and it ends up being at detriment to himself.
That's interesting because as a GM, I would say that his flaw is a little bit different, but that's really interesting.
What do you think? I'm interested to hear.
I would say that JP's biggest flaw is his naivete.
Yeah, that's definitely up there.
Because JP puts his foot in his mouth or he steps into a situation and he creates. I'm surprised at how much he actually conflict he actually creates, not for the group internally, but for them as a party, as a whole, as a crew. And I said it episode 1, I think to Lazarus in chat. JP is the viewers into this world because he is so naive, and I think it's fantastic. Whereas, in the same way, I thought that that Johnny is the same thing for Esper, and that Roz was that for team for Team Doozies. It's just interesting how that those characters, those characters that are most vulnerable, most innocent, are the ones that kind of bring everybody in. They bring them into the world where there are these other complex things. So yeah, I love the difference the opinion that we have, because it makes for that conflict at the table even better.
Mm-hmm. So Zippy, what kind of conflict? So you said Henry has this big internal conflict with his mythos, like especially with the seasonal atrophy. What is another thing that you think he fails at?
So his darkness comes from the aspect of death. Cernunnos is the warden of life, death, nature, fertility, and whatnot. I associate the death aspect more to Herne the Hunter from Welsh mythology. And what it is Henry is a doctor. He wants to be a doctor, and he wants to do no harm. He wants to save everyone. But by doing that, he's actively rejecting this aspect of Cernunnos is death. You have to purge the world of evil, and that's one of the things he purges during the Wild Hunt is evil souls. He's actively against that, which creates, I guess, this fracture psyche, this whisper in his ear saying, kill him, because if you kill him, think of how many people you're saving. But if you kill him, you're killing a life, is what Henry retorts. So it's that big back and forth. So, and because of that, I feel like that's why he doesn't have the winter mythos theme book yet. It's when he finally sits down and he accepts that this is how he has to learn to balance, because that's another aspect of Cernunnos is balance. He has to balance that. He's very imbalanced. That's one of his flaws right now, is he's actively against himself.
Yeah.
He's acting against himself. That's why when it was when he did the stop holding back, the scale was no return. He's choosing to give in to this voice that's saying kill him to save Roz, and think of how many people you're saving by killing him. And he gave into that. And luckily it didn't burn the theme book, because if it did, that's when he would get that mythos theme book for winter, that active choice of giving into his dark side. Other than that, I feel like one of his flaws is he's so broken as a character because of all the stuff that has happened. He talks in platitudes. He's like, you're really Volando is like, Sithana, you're very chipper for somebody who just saw a bunch of dead people. Oh, death is another part of life. You know, using those platitudes, oh yeah, no, where there's life, there's death. What goes around comes around, and he talks like that to hide the fact that this is actually really eating away at him. He's just very sheltered because of the fact that he's never dealt with, and I really hope that we'll get to a bigger flashback with Sithana and Henry about what happened to Tommy, because I've only flashed back to he came into the hospital shot up, and then there was the flashback that he's holding the blood down. I'm sorry, I thought it would work. you know, there's a big deeper like a deeper story behind that of why Henry blames himself for Tommy's death.
Mm-hmm. I think that's super interesting. I love that like everyone has their own crazy dynamic, especially with like Gephardt with what happened with him, which that was Johnny shaking his head.
I was gonna say that this week felt almost like every crew was like racing to prove that our team was the most dysfunctional. that was like a little bit what was happening.
You know what? Now, I have to throw it out there. Our team was like dysfunctional from the get go because we're a bunch of like mismatched hodgepodge people that like we normally wouldn't like meet together, and then like we meet together, and like it's like we have so many different like in D&D standards, like we have so many different alignments that like Johnny's like the
he's the paladin.
Yeah, and it's like I'll take the damage, and then like you have Cal who's chaotic neutral, and you have Geo who's
neutral.
I don't know what he is. I honestly
feel like he's
have
super true neutral.
Sometimes yeah, and sometimes.
No, he likes to pretend he's true neutral, but secretly he's neutral good. He's like the good guy who like wants to pretend that he's like just like this jaded, old, he doesn't care at all, but it turns out he's really the good guy.
He's that kid who, when a new game comes out, he's like, that game sucks. You haven't even played it. Yeah, well, it sucks. And then you see him playing the game under his covers, with his little SNES controller. He's like, this game's pretty good.
I'm not going to tell anyone, though.
I'm not going to tell anyone.
So, and then you have Morgan, who is ranges from neutral to lawful evil or chaotic evil. I haven't really narrowed it down yet, but
she seems to have a code.
Yeah, she does. It's more lawful. I've had conversations with her. There is an evil aspect to her. We've all seen it in episode 2, so please go watch episode 2. And start from episode 1 and go all the way to 7. You can find them all on YouTube. So we're gonna start wrapping up here. We've been talking over an hour about this, and I could probably go another like 2 easily.
I didn't even realize how long it passed.
I know. I keep looking at the clock. I was like, oh, it's only been 20 minutes, and I look away and I come back and I was like, oh, it's 55 minutes now. I was like, okay, well. So let's go around the table. This is what I want. I want you to give a piece of advice for anyone who's creating a new character. And where can they find you? So we're going to start off with Sam, the Wizened Fool.
Yes, I'm Sam, twitch.tv/wizenedfool, Twitter, the Wizened Fool. My piece of advice is pick the story or figure out of a story that is most exciting you right now, and just start writing the things that most excite you, and then turn those into theme books, and you'll have a character before you know it.
And where can we find you?
Oh, yeah. You can find me all over the place. I'm on the Wednesday show on Unmade Gaming's channel for this City of Mist Metropolis game. I'm also playing Burning Wheel on Sunday on the AP Gaming Reels channel, where I play a devious and horrible evil person.
And they're all Twitch channels, right?
Yes. Okay. And then twitch.tv/KelseyDelphi for more Burning Wheel, where we play Farming Simulator on Tuesday nights. That's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Zippy.
My advice would be whenever anyone asks me how to create a character over any system, is what does your character want? What does your character want? What is he going to do? He or she going to do to obtain that want? And play that out in the story. Play the story, but play out your want, because that's going to be the one force that drives you. Henry wants to save everyone. That's why he's going after Sable, because he feels like if he takes out her, he saves people. So that's what I'd say. When it comes to City of Mist, just like Sam said, choose something that really grabs your interest and go for it. If you want to be a leprechaun who's a cobbler, do it. If you want to be a detective who's a werewolf, do that too. There are plenty of mythos about that, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the game. And you can find me at Twitch at Zippy_Zippo, as well as every Tuesdays over on Video Store Cowboys channel. I'm with the Doozies. You can find me on Wednesdays on Encounter Roleplay, where we do Sands is Here, where I play my favorite OC, Shallot Wilbur Walla Walla Thaddeus Weatherfields, the Gnome Wizard. And then you can find me on Sundays over on Henley's channel, where we play Mouse Guard.
Ooh.
So,
I love Mouse Guard. I played one session and dude.
I need more D&D in my life. I'll be
I need
honest.
Mouse Guard in my life.
I need more D&D. I
Mhm.
need a lot more tabletop. So
I wish
I'm always down.
I wish I got paid to play tabletops. Honestly, I would, because I would play so many different characters.
Let's do it. Let's make a studio right now. Boom.
We did it.
Rival Alpha.
Video Store Cowboy. Where can we find you, and what's your piece of advice?
Piece of advice first. We actually say two things. The first would be to build on what Sam said about finding something that you're really passionate about. That's an easy thing to get started in this particular system. For City of Mist, find something that's a reference to pop culture, a book, a piece of mythology, and really work that. And then find out, just work that and work that and work that until it seems like it fits coherently in the system. I think it's because the system is not strats based, it's descriptive based. It's easier to find, to describe something that you're familiar with, and then just kind of adapt it into the system. And I think that it lends itself to such a smooth character creation. And then the other half of it is find a way to make those tags, both power tags and weaknesses, as vague as possible so that they are applicable in every situation that you possibly can. That way it makes it a discussion at the table, allowing you to sort of engage with your, not only your MC in the game, but also the other players, to talk about the ways that you can explore your mythos or your logos at the table and make for more narrative gameplay. You can find me on Twitch at Video Store Cowboy, and actually everywhere on the social medias at Video Store Cowboy, except for Twitter, where there's that terrible 15 character limits on Video Store Cowboy there. You can find me on Tuesdays on my channel with Alex, with the Doozies. On Wednesdays over on Unmade Gaming, playing with Sam, doing the Team Lazarus, and on Thursdays over on Not So Speedruns, all on Twitch, playing with McLoken and the crew of Team Esper. And occasionally, although we're trying to get them scheduled more and more, you can find me over on Arvin Eleron's channel playing Esper Genesis, which is a sci-fi conversion of the 5e D&D system, which has been interesting and weird all at the same time. So yeah, that's me.
And me, your lovable host, McLoken. Episode 2 out of the way. Thank you guys so much. It was a joy talking to everyone. My piece of advice for everyone: when you're making your mythos, to kind of be the devil's advocate against what Sam said, your mythos doesn't have to pick you. Your mythos is a part of you. That could also be another concept. So, which Johnny, similarity, he's a super strong character, and someone, and his mythos has a lot of confidence, but he does not have a lot of confidence, and he's not physically strong. And playing on that a lot. Something that is also humorous is at the same time. Like one character concept I have that I'm going to be using, maybe possibly, is a lucky detective, and his mythos is Falcor the Luck Dragon. So
oh god, no, because you're gonna get so many gifts of "I like children." Oh no.
So yeah, that's the weird shit I think of, and I love the fuck out of it. So yeah, that's Yeah, and you guys can find me every Monday. This video will be uploaded to YouTube on the 6 and 20 channel. You guys can catch me Wednesdays for my D&D show, Chosen, that I DM. Is a 5e Final Fantasy homebrew campaign that I made up out of my brain and put it on paper and watch 4 lovable people play out of it. Actually, this next week, April 4th, if you guys are watching this, April 4th, 2018, if you guys are watching this in the future and you guys are like, oh, look at this archaic piece of technology. If you guys go find it on the McLoken YouTube channel, we're going to be doing a City of Mist one-shot with a few lovable people. So go check that out. I'm excited. I have to make up a story here after I get done with this show. So that's going to be fun. And then Thursdays, I'm on Not So Speedruns channel with Team Esper, solving crimes with Johnny the Boy Detective, who is super strong and does amazing things, and the chaotic split between our party. And Fridays, I'm in a Dark Heresy Warhammer 40k campaign where I, as I said before, play Judge Dredd, and I love the fuck out of it. It's so much fun. I just wish I rolled the fuck better. The fucking quantum roller just pisses me off still to this day. And then Sundays, you can catch me also over on Metamancer's channel with Call of Cthulhu Reveries, where I play Sergeant Buddy Fisher, and he's a time traveling man who's getting changed by a hound of $10, and now who's in Dreamlands. So it's a wonderful time, and I love it. So yeah, that was episode 2, character creation. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but I'll be sure to come up with it and schedule it out. Well, I may talk about crew themes, maybe, huh?
Crew themes is probably a good thing, but basic moves is also another one.
Basic. I was also thinking basic moves too, but we'll get together and talk about it. And you guys, if the video's already done, hit the annotation to go to the next channel and see what we decided on, and see what lovable crew that I have with them with me next week. And then again, see you in the mist, everyone.